Hello everyone, my name is 𝐷𝘑𝐿 and for today we're going to tackle about the different threats to nature. First, let me explain what is threats to nature. Well, threats to nature is any disturbances in the environments either naturally or through human intervention. So that this is might cause a risk to the overall well-being of our environment. So that is threats to nature. So the threats to nature number one is air pollution. So air pollution can be defined as the alteration of the air quality that can be characterized by measurement of the chemical, biological, or physical pollutants in the air. So therefore, we could say that air pollution is the presence of impurities in the atmosphere that pose a great danger to the overall human health and also to other living things. And not just to the living things, but it adds on to the global warming because air pollution emits carbon dioxide that worsen the global warming that is currently happening and continuously worsen day by day. And the second threats to nature is the climate change. So as we all know that global warming is caused by this air pollution that contributed to the worsening temperature, rising of temperature in the planet. So when the temperature rises, many effects follows. So one of these is climate change. Then climate change, we could say that it is a global phenomenon by climate transformation that could be characterized by the changing of the climates that is usually in our planet. So it totally drastically changed how our planet creates its own climate. So it really it changed completely. So we could say that climate change would really affect the overall health of the human lives and also to the plants and animals, and also it would pose a great danger to the food security because also through the changing of weather, we could say that our agricultural sector would be really affected by the climate change. So the next third one for the threats to nature is deforestation. So deforestation is the clearing of deforested land. This is the clearing either for agricultural use or they could use those trees in or for constructions and also for manufacturing like paper and also for wood as fuel. So those are the main we could define deforestation, and it really poses a great danger also because forests absorb carbon dioxide that supposed to lessen the global warming because it absorbs much more of the carbon dioxide. And also when these trees are being cutted, it would also emit more and add up to the global warming. And the last one on the list is the habitat loss. So habitat loss is the effect of deforestation and any other human intervention because we could define habitat loss of this species is the incapability of the environment to support its native species to continue to survive. So these species, when deprived from these elements that supported them to live continuously, they either go extinct or they usually migrate. But worst scenario is that they would go extinct, and this is one of the major problems that would lead to a biodiversity loss. And all of this is because of the human intervention that we could say that we should start to continue to protect and preserve this and stop this kind of activities in order to furtherly survive and protect the overall sustainability of the humankind.
So, overpopulation. Overpopulation is a rapid growth of the human species has thrown off the balance of nature, the effects of which we can see in the progression of climate change and increasing natural disasters. The impact of so many humans on the environment takes two major forms: the consumption of resources such as land, food, water, air, fossil fuels, and minerals. Waste products as a result of consumption such as air and water pollutants, toxic materials, and greenhouse gases. As the number of people increases, so does the demand for food and water and other resources increase. Techniques developed to farm food and produce items that people want to use, from clothes and cars to computers, mean that the Earth's resources are rapidly being used up. The harmful emissions produced by factories and vehicles cause an environmental damage such as climate change. In a particular place, overpopulation can also be caused by an influx of people forced into the area due to war, famine, or other disasters, making their previous home uninhabitable. Climate change is causing an increase in the number of hurricanes and floods, and it's likely to cause many more people to become displaced in the future. Overcrowding leads to further demand for limited resources, and this in turn can lead to more conflict and welfare. So the next threat is habitat destruction. It's one of the biggest threats facing plants and animal species throughout the world. The loss of habitat has far-reaching impacts on the planet's ability to sustain life. But even with the challenges, there is hope for the future. Habitat destruction, defined as the elimination or alteration of the conditions necessary for animals and plants to survive, not only impacts individual species but the health of the global ecosystems. Activities such as harvesting natural resources, industrial production, and urbanization are human contributions to habitat destruction. Pressure from agriculture is the principal human cause, and some others including mining, logging, trawling, and urban sprawl. Habitat destruction is currently considered the primary cause of the species extinction worldwide. Environmental factors can contribute to habitat destruction is more indirectly: geological process, climate change, introduction of invasive species, ecosystem nutrient depletion, water and noise pollution are some examples. Habitat loss can be preceded by an initial habitat fragmentation. So the next threat is the soil erosion. So the process of soil erosion is both natural and man-made. It refers to the removal of the top layer of soil. In nature, this is caused by wind and water, although human activities can increase exposure to these elements. Soil erosion affects soil health and productivity by removing the highly fertile topsoil and exposing the remaining soil. Soil erosion can also cause significant losses in biodiversity, damage to urban and rural infrastructure, and in severe cases lead to displacement of the human populations, explained by Mr. Mansour. In nature, this process generally occurs at a slow pace, meaning that the reverse process of soil production can counter it. However, human activities are currently causing soil erosion to occur at rapid rates, causing several problems. Particularly, the loss of topsoil is posing a huge threat to the future of food security, as it reduces the fertility of the land and quality of the crops, given that food demand continues to rise as the global population and urbanization increase. That will be on my part. So Liman Ronel, continue the other traits and nature. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nell Pyro Liman, and I am the next reporter. My part is the threats of the nature in the water. Overfishing, illegal fishing. Overfishing is a serious global problem that threatens the ocean wildlife, livelihoods, as seafood for future generations. When too many fish are caught and there are not enough adults to breed and stay in a healthy population, the stock is overfished. Fishing that is unsustainable, illegal, or destructive can seriously impact the biodiversity. Overfishing not only affects the fish that are targeted for harvesting but other marine like dolphins that can caught up with fishing activities and vessels. If overfishing continues, there will be not enough fish left in the ocean to feed the future generation. Invasive species are capable of causing extinctions of native plants and animals, reducing biodiversity, competing with native organisms for limited resources, and altering habitats. This can result in huge economic impacts and fundamental disruption of coastal and Great Lakes ecosystems. According to the World Conservation Union, invasive alien species are the second most significant threat of biodiversity. After habitat loss, in their new ecosystems, invasive alien species become predators, competitors, parasites, hybridisms, and diseases of our native domestication plants and animals. Oil spill. An oil spill is the release of the liquid petroleum hydrocarbon in the movement, especially the marine ecosystem due to human activity, and is a form of pollution. The term is usually given to marine oil spills where oil is released to the ocean or coastal from tankers, offshore platforms, drilling and wells, as well as spills of defined petroleum products such as gasoline, diesel, and their products. Heavier fuels used by large ships such as bunker fuel, or the spill of any oily refuse or waste oil. How do oil spill kill ocean life? Where the oil is spilled, what kind of plants, animals, and habitats are found there? And the amount of type of oil, among other things, can influence how much harm an oil spill causes. Generally, oil spills harm ocean life in two ways. The first one is fouling or oiling, and the second one is oil toxicity. Let us discuss the first one, the fouling or oiling. Fouling or oiling, when oil physically harms a plant or animal. Oil can cut a bird's wings and leave it unable to fly or strip amongst the insulating properties of a sea other's for, putting it at risk of hypothermia. The degree of oiling often impacts the animal's chances of survival. The second one is oil toxicity. Oil consists of many toxic compounds. This toxic compound can cause severe health problems like heart damage, stunted growth, immune system effects, and even death. Our understanding of oil toxicity has expanded by studying the effects of the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Wildlife recovery, draining, and rehabilitation often an important part of oil spill response. However, wildlife is difficult to find a catch oil spills if that happen. Over wide areas, and some animals like whales are too big to recover. It's unrealistic to rescue all wildlife impacted during oil spill.
Factors of threats to nature.
I am here today to report about the factors of threats to nature. The first one is air pollution. Causes of air pollution. This can be produced in a number of different ways. Manufacturing processes, particularly those that use chemicals and machinery. it can cause air pollution. Some businesses are particularly at risk of creating air pollution, including manufacturers, farmers, construction building and demolition trades, vehicle repairer, welders, mines and quarries, printers, hauliers and other, transport businesses, dry cleaners, and lastly, laboratories. Therefore, I conclude that human activities can really damage our air and can cause air pollution. That's why we humans must be responsible enough to help lessen and reduce our air pollution, and we must take actions by using the method of reuse and recycle. We must learn to conserve energy at our home, work, or anywhere. And lastly, we must take action within our community to find solutions of air pollution. Effects of air pollution. People experience a wide range of health effects from being exposed to air pollution. Effects can be broken down into short-term effects and long-term effects. Short-term effects, which are temporary, include illnesses such as pneumonia or bronchitis. Air pollution can also cause headaches, dizziness, and nausea. Long-term effects of air pollution can last for years or for an entire lifetime. It can even lead to a person's death. It can cause lung cancer, heart disease, and can damage to people's brain, kidney, liver, and other organs. Therefore, I conclude that the effects of air pollution can really damage our body and mind, and it can even lead us to death. That's why we must unite and ignite to take action to lessen our air pollution. And the second is the climate change. Causes of climate change. Number one is generating power. Generating electricity and heat by burning fossil fuels causes a large chunk of global emissions. Number two is manufacturing goods. Manufacturing and industry produce emissions, and it is one of the largest contributors to the pollutants into the air. Number three is cutting down forests. Cutting down forests to create farms or pasture or for other reasons causes emissions, since trees, when they are cut, release the carbon they have been storing. Therefore, I conclude that we must protect and plant more trees and limit the cutting of trees. Trees has a huge help to our air and to us, humans. Effects on climate change. Number one is the hotter temperatures. Higher temperatures increase heat-related illnesses and make working outdoors more difficult. Number two is the severe storms. Such storms often destroy homes and communities, causing deaths and huge economic losses. Number three is increased drought. Climate change is changing water availability, and many people now face the threat of not having enough water on a regular basis. Therefore, I conclude that the effects of climate change can have a huge impact to our livelihood and our day-by-day lives. That's why it's time that people will come up and join together to limit climate change. From the way we travel to the electricity we use, we can make a difference. And the third one is deforestation. Causes of deforestation. And these are the volcanic eruptions, hurricanes, avalanches, temperature, climate change, drought, disease, severe insect infestation, agricultural, residential. Therefore, I conclude that the loss of trees can cause flooding and soil erosion. It can terribly affect our environment and our practical life, and it can cause death to any habitat living in this world.
So another factors of threats to nature is overpopulation. So these are the various causes of overpopulation. First is a decline in the death rate. The root of overpopulation is a difference between the overall birth rate and death rate in populations. If number of children born each year equals the number of adults that die, then the population will stabilize. So this means if pila ka buk bata ipanganak sa usa ka tuig, mo po equal sa number sa mga adults nga mamatay, then ang population will stabilize. But right now, we don't know. So talking about overpopulation shows that while there are many factors that increase the death rate for short periods of time, the ones that increase the birth rate do so over a long period of time. So let me share something I learned in our Geography 1 subject. Overpopulation means an inability to support a population with the resources available. It is not all about crowded or many people. So the second causes of overpopulation is the agricultural advancements. There have been three major technological revolutions. They are the tool-making revolution, the agricultural revolution, and the industrial revolution. So with agricultural advancements, this allowed humans with more access to food that leads to subsequent population explosions. So the third causes of overpopulation is more hands to overcome poverty. So these factors caused by poverty make the people produce large families and in turn increase the overall population. The fatal effects of overpopulation. First is the depletion of natural resources. The earth can only produce a limited amount of water and food, which is falling short of the current needs. Again, overpopulation means inability to support people's needs. The growing number of people on the planet that cutting down trees, hunting wildlife in a reckless manner, causing pollution, and creating a host of other problems. So the second fatal effects of overpopulation is degrading of environment. With the overuse of coal, oil, and natural gas, it has started producing some serious effects on our environment. So makita na to sa mga news karong panahon, makita na to nga init na kayo ang kalibutan that leads to droughts in some places, melting of polar ice caps nga if ever magani nga magpadayon na ang pagmelt ani, na possibility nga some certain places in the Philippines will covered by seawaters. Changing climate patterns, rise in sea levels are a few of the consequences that we might have to face due to environmental pollution. So the third one is conflicts and wars. Starvation is a huge issue that the world is facing, in mortality rate for children being fueled by it. Poverty is the biggest hallmark we see when talking about overpopulation. We can no longer prevent it, but there are ways to control it. So another factor that threats to nature is the habitat destruction. So what are the causes of habitat destruction? First is, one of the main reasons is the agricultural industry. We know that agricultural industry is important for us to supply our needs. As our population rises, agricultural lands also need to be expanded or to become wider, that leads to habitat destruction. Dili lang kita mawadan og habitat. Animals can also lose its habitat because of agricultural industry. So the second one is a vast majority of natural habitats are destroyed for human homes as well. We decided to clear out lands for large buildings and to make room for attractions that are profitable. Large trees are used to create various paper products and furniture and miscellaneous items, and wood is also used for production of furniture and other items. And the third one is, habitats are also lost to make room for more business and to meet the demand of large corporations. The effects of habitat destruction. As we make more room for people, we often overlook the homes that are being destroyed in the process. Habitat destruction is the leading cause of extinction of various species and is the reason that many animals are endangered. Animals are very intelligent beings, but without their natural homes, they are unable to protect themselves and care for their young ones. So, another factors of threats to nature is soil erosion. So what causes soil erosion? Soil erosion is one of the side effects of heavy rain. Massive amounts of water can displace the top part of the soil. If the phenomenon continues over a long period of time, even heavier sand and gravel particles will be displaced. So, based on our observations and experiences, bisag ginagmay man ganing ulan, makakause ng soil erosion. If heavy rains will always continue, then this will lead to landslides. As we can see after the typhoon Ozette, numerous landslides can be seen in the mountainous area in our town or city. Heavy farming is another major cause of soil erosion. Excessive cultivation, for example, can wreck the structure of some soils so that they are no longer capable of holding enough moisture for growing plants. So this means that if na excessive cultivation, maguba ang structure sa soil that can no longer capable nga maghawid sa yuta. Heavy rains and strong winds made the soil erode that leads to landslide. The soil erosion effects. The effects of soil erosion can range from mild to catastrophic. The biggest effect is definitely the loss of the topsoil. Mawala na siya. It is the fertile part of the land that can be used to grow plants. Another major issue caused by soil erosion is possible water contamination and pollution. Soil erosion contributes to water contamination and pollution since the soil carry fertilizers and other pesticides in some agricultural land. This will be a risk para sa mga tubig na atong ilimnon since the water can't be effectively absorbed by the land. Runoffs will occur and carry fertilizer or pesticide with them.
Again, this is Kristen May Casido, and that will be all for my part. Thank you.
Overfishing. There are numerous reasons for overfishing. The major ones include, first, the poor fisheries management. The fishing industry has long been weighed down by a lack of management oversight and proper government regulations. Traceability of fishing activities has been a great challenge as well. So, millions of people depend on fishing for their livelihood, and for billions of people rely on fish as their key source of protein. So, with increased overfishing related practices and without sustainable management, many fish stocks are reduced to below acceptable levels. Catching too many fish seems like a practice, but it endangers ecosystems and affects the balance of life in the ocean. And now we have the effects of overfishing in the environment. So first, the marine ecosystem imbalance. So targeted catching of essential predators such as sharks, tuna, and billfish disrupts marine ecosystem in the long run. This results in increased numbers of smaller marine animals below the food chain. Second, we have the dwindling harvest of targeted fish. The population of fish that is worth consuming is increasingly reducing thanks to overfishing. Overfishing has led to a decrease in the population of productive fish, resulting in lesser stocking of the fish. So third, we have the fishing of untargeted or endangered marine species. Bycatch leads to the capturing of marine animals that are not used or required. The animals may include protected or endangered species or species that are of little or no economic value. If caught, they are normally destroyed or discarded either in the water or ashore. So wherever there is a fishing, there is bycatch, so the accidental capture of non-target species such as dolphins, marine turtles, and seabirds. Thousands of miles of nets and lines are set in the world's ocean. It is each day, and modern fishing gear, often undetectable by sight and extremely strong, is very efficient at catching the desired fish species as well as anything else in its path. So, a staggering amount of marine life, including turtles, dolphins, and juvenile fish, is hauled up with the catch and then discarded overboard, dead or dying. So now, let's have the invasive species and the causes of invasive species. So there are two key causes of invasive species introduction that are intentional and unintentional anthropogenetic activities. So first, we have intentional causes of invasive species introduction. So intentional causes are listed below with a brief description. So first, controlling pests. So exotic species are introduced in an area to control pests that are ruining the standing crops. So second, let's have the import pests. So some people import various kinds of animals and keep them as pets. These imported animals are non-native and often considered alien species. So importers of all FIFRA-regulated pesticides and devices, including unregistered pesticides, must comply with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection or CBP regulations. So the unregistered pesticides may be imported only if the import meets the conditions of one of the specific exceptions. Note that the person who are importing unregistered pesticides for the sole purpose of exporting them must comply with the pesticide regulation notice. Next, we have trading alien species. So in this point, represent the economic situation. People are intentionally involved in the international trade of animal, plant species for economic benefits. So the invasive alien species introduced and or spread outside their natural habitats have affected native biodiversity in almost every ecosystem type on Earth and are one of the greatest threats to biodiversity. So the problem continues to grow at great socio-economic, health, and ecological costs around the world. So we'll have the unintentional causes of invasive species introduction. Unintentional causes also include human activity. So natural migration. This is also included among many other reasons. Invasive species migrate to new environments where they don't have competitors or predators. So most introduced species do not survive extended periods in new habitats because they don't possess the evolutionary adaptations to adjust to the new challenges possessed by their new surroundings. Next, we have the international trade of goods. Trading goods inside or outside has also resulted in invasive species introduction. So biological invasions are synonymous with international trade. The direct effects of trade have largely been quantified using relationships between imports and the number of alien species in a region or patterns in the global spread of species linked to the shipping and air traffic networks. Then we have the transportation vehicles. Transportation vehicles carry invasive species such as ships. They carry aquatic invasive species to new environments. So the vehicles can transport reproductive plant and animal species propagals long distances, thereby increasing the risk of invasive species transport and dispersal. Now we have the oil spill. So here's the causes of oil spills. So there are some causes from which oil spills occurred. A few of which are: it happens on the land or sea because of the leaks from ships, wells, pipelines, and other carriers of the oil. It can be caused by some accident, which includes tankers, refineries, and drilling rigs. It can be caused by the storage facilities due to the production in millions that it will result massive transportation and oil spills. Spills can be caused by the people who make mistakes, and sometimes they become careless. It happens because of the breaking of equipment. It can also happen because of the disaster. It can also occur because of the people who do illegal work.
Our world as we know it is facing multiple existential threats. Greenhouse gas emissions are causing global warming and increasing the frequency and severity of floods, droughts, and heat waves. Habitat destruction, along with wildlife trade and consumption, are wiping out species essential to ecosystem resilience. On top of that, scientists are warning us that deadly pandemics like COVID-19 will occur with increasing frequency. Global leaders are struggling to address these three enormous and intertwined crises of climate change, biodiversity loss, and future pandemics. These are humanity's most urgent challenges, and yet we are overlooking a common solution that will help us solve all three at once: protecting our remaining intact forests. If we fail to protect forests, we do so at our own peril. There is no backup plan, no alternative that can restore the many benefits that they provide. Forests are what stand between us and a future of unchecked climate change, biodiversity loss, and deadly pandemics. We must protect them for our planet, for our health, and for our children.
Seriousness of threats in nature.
So in this part, we are going to tackle about the seriousness of threats in nature and how these threats worsen over time. So one of the threats in nature is air pollution. Air pollution causes over 6.5 million of deaths each year globally, and it is still increasing. People who live in high-density air pollution areas have a 20% higher risk of dying from lung cancer than those living in less polluted areas. Since air pollution has a negative influence to human lives, the contaminated air that they inhaled on a daily basis caused many deaths. Air pollution has led to millions of deaths each year from all over the world. In places where the rate of air pollution is high, then higher the rate of people suffering from lung cancer. The published estimates of the death toll from air pollution span a wide range, as the chart made clear. The number of deaths attributed to outdoor air pollution ranges from 3 million to almost 9 million per year. In addition, a large number of deaths are attributed to indoor air pollution. So in this chart, it shows the number of deaths caused by outdoor and indoor air pollution and how it dramatically increases every year. This range makes clear that research on the global impact of air pollution is still in its early stage. More scientific research is needed to arrive at greater certainty. but it is also worth pointing out that all studies agrees that the health impact of air pollution is very high. They agree that the annual death toll is in the millions. This shows how air pollution has a very high impact to our health that unfortunately leads to millions of numbers of deaths. Another threat of nature is climate change. According to the WMO Atlas of Mortality and Economic Losses from Weather, Climate, and Water Extremes 1970 to 2019, there were more than 11,000 reported disasters attributed to these hazards globally, with just over 2 million deaths and $3.64 trillion in losses. In this chart, it shows that climate change has caused thousands of disasters that led to deaths and over $1 trillion worth of property losses. The report is most comprehensive review of mortality and economic losses from weather, water, and climate extremes to date. It assesses the entire 50-year period as well as the individual decade. From 1970 to 2019, weather, climate, and water hazards accounted for 50% of all disasters, 45% of all recorded deaths, and 74% of all reported economic losses. Another threat is deforestation. Deforestation in Earth's largest rainforest is on track to rival last year's 15-year high according to data released today by the Brazilian government. NIPE, or the Brazil's National Space Research Institute, today published figures from its DETER, or Deforestation Alert System, which tracks forest clearing on a near real-time basis to support enforcement action against illegal deforestation. NIPE's system detected 8,590 square kilometers of deforestation between August 1, 2021 and July 31, 2022. 2.3% less than the previous year, when deforestation hit the highest level since 2006. The area of forest affected by degradation and selected cutting, which is typically a precursor to outright deforestation, climbed 15.6% year over year. And that is all my part. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lindy Sibumit, and I'm going to talk about habitat loss of species. Nearly 3 billion animals were killed or displaced by Australia's devastating bushfire season of 2019 and 2020. In India, 3% of bird species face extinction, 19% of amphibians are threatened or critically endangered. Over 12% of wild mammal species are threatened with extinction. More than 80% of East and Southeast Asia's wetlands are classified as threatened due to human activity. We are in a time of global upheaval, both politically and economically in regard to our environment. The latter has not yet superseded the two former, but reports like the LPR are driving a growing understanding on the gravity of the situation. Our life support system, the world we live in, is in a critical state, and to simply understand and acknowledge this is the first step. Today, the world's population is more than 3 times larger than it was in the mid-20th century. The global human population will reach 8 billion in mid-November 2022 from an estimated 2.5 billion people in 1950. Adding 1 billion people since 2010 and 2 billion since 1998. It took around 37 years since 1950 for human numbers to double, surpassing 5 billion inhabitants in 1987. and 2020, and for the first time since 1950, the rate of population growth fell below 1% per year, and it is projected to continue to slow in the next few decades and through the end of the century. The global population could grow to around 8.5 billion in 2030 and add 1.18 billion in the following 2 decades, reaching 9.7 billion in 2050. The global population is still growing, albeit at a reduced rate. Some countries and regions continue to experience further population growth, while others have witnessed a stabilization or begun to decrease in population size. The world's two most populous regions in 2022 were Eastern and Southeastern Asia, with 2.3 billion people, representing 29% of the global populations in these regions, with more than 1.4 billion each 2022. Destruction is currently ranked as the primary cause of species extinction worldwide. It is a process of natural environmental change that may be caused by habitat fragmentation, geological processes, or by human activities such as the introduction of invasive species, ecosystem nutrient depletion, and other human activities. Tropical rainforests have received most of the attention concerning the destruction of habitat. From the approximately 16 million square kilometers remain today, the current rate of deforestation is 160 square kilometers per year, which equates to a loss of approximately 1% of original forest habitat each year. Other forest ecosystems have suffered as much or more destruction as tropical rainforests. They found that $8 billion is lost annually from global GDP. Worldwide food production is reduced by 33.7 million tons of food. The study is unique in that the researchers were able to capture losses from structural economic change as a result of shifts in primary resources like land quality. Previous studies simply calculated crop loss and multiplied it by market values. Moreover, this study was the first to apply this method on a global scale. Countries that have both the highest erosion rates as well as a large proportion of agricultural land are especially vulnerable. The majority of Caribbean countries, Brazil, Central African countries, and parts of Southeast Asia are experiencing severe erosion on more than 70% of their arable land. In contrast, Australia, Canada, Saharan countries, Russia, and most of the European Union are only losing 3% of their arable land to severe erosion. To put this in perspective, on average, 24% of arable land globally is undergoing severe erosion.
Next, we're going to tackle about how overfishing increased through the years. Overfishing occurs when fish are caught faster than their stocks can be replaced, resulting in a reduction in fish population that may lead to their extinction. Not only does overfishing threaten marine ecosystems, but it also affects a large number of people, especially those who depend significantly on fishing for a living. In 2018 report, the overall amount of fisheries caught worldwide was 96.4 million metric tons, which was 5.4% rise from the average between 2014 and 2017. This was the highest level ever recorded. Also in 2018 report, the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization reported that 33.1% of global fish stocks are overfished. Since pre-industrial times, there has been significant overfishing. Overfishing in the Western Atlantic Ocean in particular has been well documented since the early days of European colonization of the Americas. As you can see in the picture, the percentage of fish stocks that are biologically sustainable has been dropping from 90% in 1974 to 66.9% in 2015. In contrast, the percentage of fish stocks at biologically unsustainable levels climbed from 10% in 1974 to 33.1% in 2015, with the greatest increases occurring in the late 1970s and early 1980s. In 2015, maximally sustainable fish stocks, previously known as completely fish stocks, accounted for 59.9% of total evaluated stocks, while underfish stocks accounted for 7%. While the number of underfish population decreased steadily from 1974 to 2015, the number of maximum sustainable fish stocks decreased from 1974 to 1989 before increasing to 59.9% in 2015. So next is invasive species. Although invasive species are well known for the major ecological costs they impose, they also have severe sociological, environmental, and health effects that place a heavy economic burden on society. According to recent research conducted by the University of Aberdeen and Auckland in association with the French National Centre for Scientific Research, invasive species have cost the New Zealand economy close to $100 billion over the past 50 years. Damage costs are still high, but this total also includes spending which is much higher than that of the majority of those other nations in relation to its GDP on pre- and post-invasion management strategies. The reported cost of invasion from 1960 to 2020 was $4.52 trillion USD in 2017. If costs are only taken into consideration, those are observable and extremely dependable. The entire cost came to $1.22 trillion, or an average annual cost of $19.94 billion. Between 1960 and 1969, these costs were $2 billion annually. From 2010 to 2020, they were $21.08 billion annually. The majority of expenses were for resource losses and damages, as opposed to management costs. Agriculture was the industry with the greatest impact, over $509.55 billion, and the majority of expenses, $643.51 billion or 53%, were associated with invasive species in terrestrial ecosystems. Mammals and insects accounted for the largest taxonomic groups costs, totaling $234.71 billion and $126.42 billion respectively. Lastly is oil spills. One major leak over 700 tons and 5 minor spills between 7 and 700 tons were reported for the year 2021. The major spill happened in Asia, while smaller accidents happened in North America and Africa. Compared to 2020, when 4 spills totaling around 7 tons were reported, this is a slight increase, although it is still about typical for the 2010s. About 10,000 metric tons of oil were lost to the environment as a result of tanker accidents in 2021. The one significant incident that was reported is largely to blame for this being greater than the prior 2 years. This picture shows the figures on the frequency of spills of more than 7 tons from tankers over the past 50 years, which indicate a clear decreasing trend. Approximately 79 spills occurred on average each year in the 1970s. In the 2010, this dropped to 6 by more than 90%. The average yearly output for this decade is 5.
Thank you for watching. God bless.